morning, everybody. This is Frances Categorize with the East End Chamber of Commerce, and it's an honor to welcome you to our COVID-19 business webinar. Today is October 6th, and we're very honored to have Andrew Buchan, with firm owner and certified business coach with ActionCoach. And thank you so much, Andrew, for being here today.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here.
Yes, and today we're going to be talking about boosting your revenue from existing customers. And I know a lot of us, especially right now during COVID, need guidance, need tips, need assistance on boosting revenue from existing customers. So thank you so much for giving us your words of wisdom. We're going to turn over the tools for you to change the slides, and there you go. So thank you so much, Andrew, and I'll be back in a minute for a Q&A.
Thank you. Thank you. So my name is Andrew Buchan, and I am the firm owner and a business coach at ActionCoach Houston Inner Loop. So one thing I want to go over at the very start here is the only failure is the failure to participate. So you give 100%, you'll get 100% out of this session today. So I want to make sure our chat is working. So if you agree to give 100%, just type a Y or yes. If you don't, you can still type a no. I'm not sure if that's kind of you participating anyway. But the reason for this is if you are listening, just listening to a presentation, you're going to retain about 20% of this information. If you're like me, you always have your notebook and pen right next to you. You're probably going to double that. You'll remember about 40% of it. And if you start participating back and forth, it's going to go right up. And you're going to remember and retain a lot of this information. So we're going to get going on the participation part straight away. So what I want you to do is to put down A, B, C, and D on a piece of paper right in front of you. A, B, C, and D. The reason we're going to look at this is information is powerful. And in our business, or whatever business we have, understanding what we have and the information that we have and how we make decisions is extremely important. So when we start thinking about customers, we need to categorize our customers. So we can categorize them into awesome A customers, awesome customers, basic customers, still good, but maybe basic, C, can't deal with, and then D, the ones we really don't want to deal with. So on the A, B, C, D, just right now, just write down a customer that you think is an A, a B, a C, a D, in any order that you want. So you got it on your piece of paper right now, A, B, C, D. Write down a customer that you feel is an awesome customer, a basic customer, can't really deal with, a dead customer. So in the chat, just type in the first one that popped into your mind. Was it an A customer, B customer, C customer, D customer? We'll see if we have anyone that pops in with which ones came in. So we got some that are coming in with A, great. Did anyone think of D first? Or C first? The ones that you can't deal with, the ones that are pretty annoying. Maybe you know those customers by heart. You know their phone number at least, maybe when they pop up on your cell phone and they're calling you. But A's and B's, that's great. It's good that we're focused on the A and B customers. They are extremely important to our business. And yet they also don't always get the most amount of time from us. A, B, C, D customers, when we look at it, it's almost like that 80-20 rule as well. A lot of the time, not all the time, but a lot of the time, those C's and D's can take up a lot more of our time in business than the A's and B's. But the A's and B's may be contributing more revenue, more value, more profit to our business. So it's an interesting thing for us to look at. So the other exercise I want us to go straight through at the very beginning here is think about some of those attributes for the A and B customers. What is it about those A's and B customers that work well in your business? And then do the same for the C's and D's. What are some of those attributes on those C's and D's customers that don't work well with your business? So it's important to look at this because when you're interacting with customers, if you've got a clear idea about the type of customers you want to draw into your business, that you want to work with, that you want to provide services and products to, it's very important that you position yourself in your mind that you're attracting these A's and B's and what to look for. That's great. So let's jump in a little bit about ActionCoach. I'm not sure if everyone here on online here knows everything about ActionCoach, but it is the #1 business coaching firm in the world. We have over 1,000 coaching offices in 82 countries. My coaching office is Houston Inner Loop up on Washington Avenue. It's the collective knowledge from 30 years. It's almost 30 years that ActionCoach has been in business, providing value to business owners. We have 3,500 tools, systems, and processes to grow your business. We're certainly not going to go over all of them today, but there's definitely some of the biggest ones that I feel and I've seen my other clients use that has given them the best opportunity to increase their revenue with existing customers. We have a vision. It's to create abundance through business re-education. Abundance is a big word for us. There is no scarcity when it comes to business. The more businesses grow, the more customers they are to fill those, the more employment that we have across the United States, across Texas, across the world. ActionCoach is coaching about 15,000 businesses every single week across all these different countries and many more. So the first thing I want to go through to make sure there's a formula that we use inside at ActionCoach, and this is part of what we go through in coaching. Most business owners, when we talk to them, they know the number of customers they have, they know the revenue, and they know the profit. Usually, those are the three things that they can almost rattle off at the top of their head or give a good estimate for. But really, for us, these are outputs. They're not inputs into the system. So when we look at the inputs that go into the system, those are the ones that we're really going to drive. And that is number of leads. So that's your marketing, number of leads that you can get into your business, your conversion rate. Your conversion rate is how many of those leads you can turn into customers. So that's your sales. So your leads times your conversion rate is the number of customers you have. Now you take your number of customers, multiply that by the number of transactions, the number of times those customers are coming through over a period of time, and then multiply that by the average dollar sale, which is how much they're spending on each of these transactions, and that drives your revenue. Your revenue is very simply multiplied by your profit margin to give your profit. But those blue ones that we've highlighted, they're the components that at ActionCoach we focus in on the strategy. So we have multiple strategies, almost 100 strategies for each of those blue components that we drive to improve the business. So I want to give you an example. I went over that pretty quickly, but if we just use some numbers just to give you the idea. So if we had 4,000 leads with a conversion rate of 25%, we would have, 1,000 customers. Pretty simple so far. Now those 1,000 customers, each of those 1,000 customers, 2 transactions over a period of time, with an average of $100 spend, gives us our revenue of $200,000. If our profit margin is 25%, our profit is $50,000 at the end of this time period that we're looking at. So if we specifically take each of the components for this profit calculation and focus in on those specifically, we're able to move the needle. Let's just look at this example here where we're moving it just 10%. Just 10% improvement. Like I said, we've got hundreds of ways that we can improve each of these components. But if we move it just 10%, so we go from 4,000 to 4,400 at 10% improvement. We do the same for conversion rate. Now we're not adding on 10%, we're just adding 10% to that number. So we go to 27.5%. How many customers do we have? 1,210. So we've already seen a pretty big jump in just two components of our formula. We take the number of transactions. So again, a 10% improvement. So instead of 2, we can go to 2.2. Again, this is just averages over the time period. We go to 2.2 and our average dollar sale goes up 10%. We can go from $100 to $110. Again, I think 62 strategies on increasing your average dollar sale. That gets our revenue to 292,820. That's a huge jump. That's already over, I think, 40%, over 40% jump there. Our profit margins, how can we go through strategies to increase our profit margin 10%? We've got many different ways to look at that, but you go from 25% to 27.5%. You're up to 80,525.50 cents improvement. Looking at these and breaking them down so that you can specifically target and measure each of those different components to be able to give you the huge improvement at the very end. Now, we're going to talk about two of these specific ones today because we're talking about how to boost the revenues with existing customers. So what we're going to look at today is the number of transactions and the average dollar sale. Those are the two that we're going to focus in on, but I wanted to give you that complete picture of just what a 10% increase in each of these components inside of the formula that we use here at ActionCoach, what that can do to your business. So that's a 46% increase in your revenue and a massive 61% increase in your profits with just a 10% improvement in each of those 5 key areas. So that gives you a little bit of the context about what we're looking at when I'm going to be discussing a little bit further with the number of transactions and the average dollar spend. Two very important key parts of the formula for massively increasing your profits in your business. So one thing I want to make sure that we go through before we talk about those is why customers leave. Why do people leave? I love this sign here. I don't know if it's outside of a restaurant or a bar or where it is, but wanted customers. I think that's a pretty cool, funny sign right there. But why do people leave? And we can use the chat right now. What's the biggest reason you've heard of customers leaving? If you've got any ideas real quick, just go type that out. Okay, we got one there. Any more? It's a very common one, that one. Service, okay, perfect. Bad service, yep, agree, yep. Okay. Any more? Let's see if anything else comes out. Lack of capacity, okay, yep. All right, okay. So when, there has been so many independent surveys about why customers leave and what they go through. This is the accumulation of all the different data and looking at it. So one is they move on from this world, they move away to another part. They go buy from a friend, and people do that. They go to someone else that they know, like, and trust more than you. And if it's a friend existing, that's going to happen. They're sold by someone else. That's a little bit different, but again, it's a very, very low percentage. Product and price, and we had a couple on them on the top from a couple of people. Is that price? It's really not about price. You hear it a lot, and I talk to a lot of clients, and our price is not as good as theirs, and this is not as good as theirs. It's the easiest thing for a customer to tell you is that it's your price. It's the easiest thing because it's not really offending you. It's offending, or it's talking about something else. It's not the price of it. They're really being nice. They're being nice when they tell you that it was the price or some other reason, because the biggest reason is perceived indifference. So what does that perceived indifference mean? So perceived indifference is you just don't care. That's what they feel. Now you can feel, and we had a couple of those in there from the service, bad service, that can be kind of there. But when it really gets down to it, they just don't feel special at the end of the day. And if they don't feel special, then that's a big part of why customers repeat and come back. And if they don't feel that perceived indifference, which is the largest reason, they'll tell you something else, but the largest reason really is that perceived indifference, and that it's not, it's just not there from them. So let's jump into the two big components like I was talking about. The first one is the number of transactions. So if you can increase your number of transactions, it is a huge boost to your overall revenue. So the first one, there's 3 on each of these I'm going to go over that I've found are the biggest and easiest to do something about today in your business. So the first one is your customer database. Now, your customer database can vary from a very elaborate CRM database, or it could be a list that you have on an Excel file. It could even be something that you've had written down with all that information. Making sure that it's clean, it's concise, that it has the right information. That is one challenge that most businesses have to go look at. But then you also need to think about, what is that process for your current A and B customers? And what are you doing with that database information and reaching out to them for your current A and Bs? And then you need to think about your process for your past A's and B's. So you might have had some A's and B's in the past. How do you go back and communicate with them? It's a very, very important distinction. You have to make sure that you have a process for what you're currently doing with your existing customers, A's and B's, and then what you're doing with the process for your past A's and B's. You certainly don't want to go out there and doing an email campaign that just tries to cover absolutely everyone at the same time. If you do that, you're probably going to start confusing people. You're going to confuse your current ones, and you're probably going to confuse your past customers as well. So that communication, when you start looking at your customer database, the communication you have to use is one that creates value. It's not a communication on just straight up sales. It has to be something that's creating value. So if you have any examples that you have, just type them out in the chat. I'll go through an example that I know of. A communication that comes out from a maid service, house cleaning service, right? There are newsletters that come out, and how do they create value inside of that newsletter? How do they have their customers see that there is more perceived value in what that one company is sending out compared to everyone else? So I've seen them with, here is the top 3 tips to spring cleaning. Here are the top 3 tips on keeping an oven clean, or maintenance inside of your oven, or along those lines. This is the top 3 ways to get rid of a stain on your carpet, cement, concrete, whatever it is. So they're adding value by giving you information. That's building up that relationship. Relationship is a huge part of this, and making sure that you're able to extend value more than just, this is what I have, this is what my product is, and this is what it costs, this is what it sells. So the first one there, customer database, and how to manage that, and how to make sure that you are continuously adding value inside of that section. The next one is, okay, so making your customers feel special. We talked about that. The indifference part, you need to look through and try to understand how you wow your customers. What is it that you do special that can wow them and make them remember about the service, about the experience, about how it felt to them? That's sometimes difficult in some non-glamorous industries, but how do you wow your customers and make them feel special? It's a very, very important thing. The part of this that is very, very important, it definitely builds up your number of transactions, but customers that feel special also are perfect and great referrals. Referrals takes you all the way back up to the top and drives your leads, which is a different section. We won't talk about that, but this is a very important one because it can also drive a continuous referral database. So never-ending referrals coming out of your business if you treat and wow your current customers, your A's and B's, and make sure that they are feeling special. The other way, another way, or an addition into how you make them feel special, is that critical non-essentials. Critical non-essentials, you can Google that. There's a couple of books out there on critical non-essentials and what they are. So they are non-essentials. They're not part of the sale. They're not an impact that is going to make or break the service or the quality of the service, but we call them critical because they keep customers and they make them feel special. one of the guys who wrote a book on critical non-essentials, he was a dentist. And some of the critical non-essentials they used in their dentist industry was very simple. So making sure that everyone in the office knew the name of the people coming into the business that day. So they were greeted by name. Very, very simple, but it's a critical non-essential. You need to make sure that there's a process to explain all the different people, what order the people are coming in, making sure that the names are known. When they went into the examination room, their name was on the side of the door. So welcome, Miss XYZ, for the appointment, for the cleaning, for what it was. And also when they came in, they were offered their favorite drink. So they had on their register what their favorite drink was. So if it was a coffee or an iced tea or a green tea or a chai tea, whatever they were having, it was ready and offered to them as they walked into the door. I mean, that would make you feel extremely special. If you were that person and you walked in, they know your name, it's written up on the wall, they know your favorite drink, and they've already offered it and prepared it before you've even walked in the door. You sit down, you're drinking it. That's all these things that make you feel special. It's got nothing to do with how the dentist service worked or what the performance and the skill was, but it all adds into that parts of the business that makes that customer a wow customer, sending out those referrals, and being a customer for life and continuing that. So let's jump into the next one here on time. Okay. So scripts. Scripts are an important part of repeat customers and repeat number of transactions. So, and you've probably all witnessed this if you've gone to a restaurant or if you've gone to some types of services out there. Is there a script that they used to ask you to come back? Was there a script at the end of the day? When I say script, you didn't take out a piece of paper maybe and read it, but it's been consistent the amount of times you've been in that business, industry, restaurant that you've heard the people say it's a training part. So asking them to come back, asking them for the next appointment. You never leave a customer walking out without asking them to come back or asking for a commitment for them to come back, booking an appointment. When will we see you next? Thinking about some of those critical non-essentials. If it's an industry where the next time they're going to come back, is there a way for you to do that? Very important piece to use that. And there's nothing wrong with using scripts. It keeps your business consistent because you never know who's going to be talking to that person. You need to make sure that your business has the same amount of information right across the board, and we're always following it. So let's jump into the next one, which was our average dollar sale. So one of the easiest ones, well, I should say the easiest one is just to increase price, but we won't go through that example today. But it certainly is the easiest way to increase your average dollar sale. And if you've got an A and B customer, they're not going to be objected to it because they're staying for other reasons. They're staying for different reasons than just price. Because again, only 16% of people leave a business because of price. But we're going to talk about this one. So upsell and add-on sell. So two great examples of upsell and add-on sell is, do you want to supersize that? Upsell, how do we get more from an order that's already been? And then the add-on sell, do you want fries with that? Right? So McDonald's definitely has the upsell and add-on sell nailed down. And it doesn't need to work every single time, but that one script that they use every single time allows them to increase their average dollar sale. And that's what it needs to happen. And if you think about all the different countries and all the different places they have, that is a huge amount of revenue just on this list. Would you like a muffin, a croissant with that? And his eyes followed it down, looked at it and picked something out. And once he paid for it, he asked, is that something you're taught on how to do that? On how to move your hand? Because it took his eyes right across. And she said, yes. She goes, that's what we learn in training on day 1, day 2 training when we go in the coffee shop is at the end, we are meant to ask this and take our hand and move it. And she actually told the coach, it actually improved the conversion 30% by taking her hand and moving it across. Very, very simple little things that work in that business, and they've gone through huge amounts of testing and measuring to be able to do that, but it's all part of the script. The script can be the words, the script can be the actions, the script can be a lot of different things. And then on the use of a checklist. So if you are if someone is buying a service or the product from you, what is the checklist on things that you can ask every single time that you can increase your average dollar sale? There was another great example of a client that we have in the sign business. So she sells a sign. Every time they sell the sign, there's the checklist of the things that they might need, the customer might need to go along with that. It could be the hardware, it could be the cleaning, it could be some of the prep materials. All these different things the customer is going to need. Why don't they buy it from you? So able to add that on using that checklist. If they buy X, this. If they buy Y, buy this. These are the checklists that you can use to increase that average dollar sale every single time. Packaging deals. So your high margin product services. Package those with other offerings that you have. It makes it easier. It gives the idea that the deal is there, but you are focusing still on your high margin products and services with that little bit extra. And then to do that as well, if you would never discount. You're never discounting anything inside of your business, but if you want to show that you are giving away an offer of perceived value, how do you do that? By adding on a product and service, not a discount, but adding something on. It's a lot better for your business to add $100 worth of value that might cost you something else than to reduce your cost by $100. Say that one more time just to make sure. It's a lot better for your business to add perceived value of $100 and then understanding how much that extra $100 of perceived value costs you than it is to reduce your price by $100 because that $100 is gone and it's gone from your bottom line. It's gone from your profit. So last one here, very straightforward, but one of the best things you can do is, do you communicate in a value-added way all of your products and services? Your product service ladder is what we call it. But does your customer know all of them? Do they know you can do all this? It's amazing the amount of times we sit down with clients and they tell us a story that a customer was in, and as they've started to use their checklists on upselling and add-on selling, that the customer has been aware of something that they didn't know before. So you can have A and B customers that don't know everything you do. It's a very, very important piece to know and to be able to explain and to do it in a way that is adding value to your business and adding value to the customer's awareness. So always adding that value is a very key point when you're communicating the products and services that you have inside of your business. So that was, I think, 3 and 3 on the two top ways to revenue from the existing customer base. I think they're all things that you can look at and scratch and think about right now. So I'd like to say thank you before we get into any questions that anyone has. Thank you very much for the opportunity to talk and share some of the thoughts and ideas from ActionCoach, Houston Inner Loop. And if there is anything that you would like to talk about more, there's a complimentary session. All you have to do is email Jill Maxwell, all one word, at actioncoach.com. And we can schedule a time that we can talk a little bit more about your business and specifically some of the things we talked about today. But I'm happy to open it up to any questions that we have right now.
Thank you so much, Andrew. This was very informative, and I took a lot of notes, and I'm sure a lot of people out there took notes as well. So thank you so much for sharing that insight with us. It's all about knowing your customer, and thank you for that. What now during COVID, folks are not in their offices. Are there any tips that we could use to apply your learning for those for us to connect with them on the phone or via email?
So to connect with customers more specifically, I think just doing that is the most important thing. I think, however you feel by yourself today in your business and maybe being out of the office and everything else is probably how a lot of other people are feeling. We've actually done a lot of studies and looked at it that, a lot of the older ways of reaching out to customers, like phone, and even mail are now becoming so much more popular in these days, these COVID days, than you would expect. And it's a lot because people are wanting this interaction instead of the generic email and other things on the websites. But reaching out and talking, sorry, to customers through the maybe old school kind of ways, through letters, through phone calls, is really important right now. And it's building that relationship and keeping that relationship. You know, one thing that we ask when we go through that ABCD is, when was the last time you called an A just to say thank you? Just to say thank you, not to offer any more services, not to offer them anything else, just to say thank you. So that's a great way to think about your business, is to make sure that you're communicating, especially with your A and B customers, just to let them know that you're thinking about them, that you appreciate them, and that they hope that they are doing well.
I have to agree with you. You know, when this happened, we started calling all of our members, and they were so appreciative that we just reached out to them, and we're continuing doing that via phone call and via email. And we saw, you know, our numbers. We were worried about renewals, and a lot of them, you know, returned, and because they knew that we were into it, and we wanted to make sure that they were succeeding during this COVID, and that we're here to supply great resources like information from you. So thank you for that. I've got a question here is, what if a customer doesn't provide feedback? You know, we've had some members that have not renewed, and they're just go radio silent. So what do you do in case of that?
Yeah, that is tough. I mean, feedback is so important. You know, there's a couple of things. Sometimes it is timing. You know, people feel a little different when they're exiting a relationship right at that very moment, and people don't want to offend anyone. That is a lot of it. So then giving you direct feedback is, you know, okay, from their point of view, it can kind of hold them back a little bit. So you can wait a little bit of time and try to repeat that feedback process, and to get a little bit more information. You can try different people in your office to try to reach out to them. But if you're not getting that, you really need to go back and look at the experience from your point of view and from their point of view on some of those interactions. Because if you go through that list of the different ways that people, different reasons people do leave, the perceived indifference is by far the biggest one. So you have to kind of take a check of yourself and think, was there something that I could have done better? Or did I do that really wasn't the way that I want to portray my business? So it's a little bit of looking in the mirror and looking at that if you can't get that direct feedback from the customer, the ex-customer.
Thank you. Another great question here is, when a customer says that they don't feel like they got the ROI, how can a business owner respond to something like that?
Okay, yeah, that's a good one. So my question would be, was there a discussion at the beginning to understand what that ROI was going to be and how you were going to understand it? Um, you know, in coaching, and what I talk about with my clients is that you have to position yourself at the beginning. So positioning at the very beginning to say, this is the rules of the game, especially for, like, you know, contractors and other people, making sure that they understand this is what we're doing. This is, you know, how we're going to process everything. If there's issues, this is how we're going to resolve them. And if it's successful, this is how we're going to proceed going forward. So there is some positioning that has to be done at the beginning, so that there's a good understanding of that return on investment at the start, so that it makes it a lot easier at the end. If they're at the end and you have a problem with understanding the return on investment, you can always try to go back and do some of that positioning, but it is 100 times harder. So definitely talking with customers at the beginning about what this experience and what the service and everything else is going to be, and both understanding each other is very, very important to make sure that that return on investment is seen in both people's eyes.
Great answer. Another question here is, in this uncertain environment, what is the number one sales tip to help close and you know, conversion to success?
So number one, so I'll throw back a question, which is, do people buy on emotion or buy on logic? 80% of people, 80% of the time, people buy on emotion. 20% of the time, they buy on logic, and people go back and forth. So there's an emotional decision making that happens. It jumps into logic to make sure that it smells good, feels good, okay, checks the boxes, and then you jump back into emotion. So if you're trying to close a sale, you have to make sure that um, you are what's in it for them is tied to an emotional idea. So if you're trying to sell a can of paint, that's pretty straightforward. But if you're trying to sell a can of paint that's going to be used to paint someone's daughter's room who's always wanted this color, and it's going to make her feel amazing, and there's going to be smiles and happy, parties and everything going with it, it's a lot easier to sell that paint than a paint that's just getting put on the wall and no one's thinking about it.
Thank you for that. Another question here is, when I have a good relationship with a customer, but he doesn't want to give me more business, how can I convert it to new business?
Oh, do we have customer? So I'd go back and again, I'd look in the mirror to really understand why that person doesn't want to give you any more business. Because he or she might be just being nice. Nice is they just don't care enough. That's why they're being nice. So understanding why that would be the first way. So there's definitely some conversations to have, to feel out, check the temperature, have some basic conversations, check the temperature to make sure that you feel if you can't move on to a further question about why you can't have more business. There could be logical reasons to do with supply and demand and making sure that there's contingency plans on some businesses, but I would probably get a little bit more deeper and ask them some more deeper questions about why they feel like that before just trying to jump in and push a sale.
I
No
like
one,
that.
no one
Just
wants
persistence.
yeah, no one wants to be sold. Everyone wants to buy. So don't try to sell people. Just explain to them why they want to buy it.
Good point. Good point. Another great question here is, what is the most effective way to introduce your services during a cold call or email self-introduction?
Yeah. So a good way to do that is to first make sure that you have an understanding of what's in it for them. We say it with them a lot. With them is what's in it for them. So if you are going in and cold calling or bold calling and saying, "Hi, I'm Andrew. I do this. I do that. We do this. We do that." You're not expressing anything to what that other person is. And after a few of those, the conversation is gonna die pretty quickly. But if you go in there and asking about their business, asking about them, asking about what they do, how they got into business, what they are doing, there's a story behind every story initially. So getting into that detail with them and being able to build up that relationship at the beginning is very, very important before you start moving into what you do. And then you've got to build that bridge across. So if they're in a business that is doing something that can tie into what your business is doing, you can ask questions leading down that path and then bring in what you do. So if you're not talking about them 80% of the time in that first 2, 3, or 4 interactions, you got to check yourself and go back to the drawing board and work on your script about what you're doing and how you're introducing yourself. But it's really more about them than it is about you.
Good answer. I like that very much. Thank you. So in closing, are there any questions that we didn't ask you that you just remembered from some of these Q&As, or any remarks to end by encouraging people to continue what they're doing during COVID? Any closing remarks?
No, I think it's just, when you think about your customers, you've got to make it about them. It has to be about them. Everything that you do is about them. If you're in business, you are in sales. There is no business that doesn't have sales. So to do that, you have to work with your customers, and making sure that you are working with your customers and appreciating them for what they do, and making sure that you are selecting the best customers for your business is so important. And making sure that you're always adding value to them in whatever way you can do.
I love that, because customer service is number one, and it was before COVID, it is during, and it will always be. So thank you so much, Andrew. And then I've got to ask, I've heard an accent there, so tell us, where are you from? Where's that accent from?
Yes, I've lived many places, but I'm originally from Scotland, a small fishing village north of Aberdeen. Is where I'm originally from, but I grew up in Aberdeen, did my schooling in Edinburgh, and have traveled the world working in different companies in the States, in Canada, in Brazil, in Singapore, Malaysia, India, and across continental Europe. But Houston is home for me these days.
Oh, wonderful. So make sure that everybody out there to connect with Andrew and with Jill to get the time to do like a free introduction, see how they can help you. It doesn't hurt to try, and he has a wealth of knowledge that can help you in your business today. We'll have another COVID business webinar next Tuesday, so hopefully everybody will join us, and we'll actually have this recorded on our website, and you can replay it on Facebook Live. Thank you so much, Andrew. Jill is amazing. She's our new ambassador chair, so we look forward to working with Jill this year, and thank her for introducing us to you. Have a great day.